Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing right here in downtown Northport? This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I am, of course, Joe Gaither. We are a proud part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network, along with Blue Collar Unplugged. Go follow our friends Blue Collar Unplugged on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on Amazon with our friends Blake Byler, Matthew Gibson, and Jacob Pickle. We're going to have a lot of fun on the Bama Central Broadcasting Network. You can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and listen to us on all those podcast platforms at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media machines. And we're, of course, at Bama Central. Your Sports Illustrated home for the Alabama Crimson Tide. We've had a lot of fun this week already. If you ever missed any of the programs, you can check them out on all those platforms we just laid out for you. We talked to Michael Bronner of WNSP already this week about Ryan Williams and his reclassification. We're going to keep talking about Ryan Williams just a little bit today. We're going to talk about the 2024 Alabama football schedule. We're going to talk all kinds of stuff with our friend Will Miller. You all know and love him because you read him on BamaCentral.com, and you can follow him at Real WB Miller on the X Machine. Will, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Man, I'm feeling good. It'd be a lot better if last night the Anaheim Ducks had not invented a new and creative way to lose a hockey game, but this is a regular activity for them now, so I guess it's something you get used to. But aside from that, feeling pretty good. Semester's finally wound down, so definitely ready to have Christmas break and get some much-needed relaxation in.
Absolutely, and Christmas break's coming for all the students, and really, we hope all our teachers and students make it another couple of weeks until it's there. End of the week for most people. Look at that! Look at my lights go out on us. That's always nice. Yeah, end of the week for most people with school, and so you guys are almost done. Hang in there a little bit. A little bit of news yesterday, Will. We got some college football schedules, SEC schedules at least, for 2024. And we knew a lot of these matchups. We knew a lot of these dates, but they put dates in slots, and every matchup got a date last night, thanks to the SEC network. First off, your thoughts on the 2-hour presentation. Did you watch it at all?
I didn't. I was watching the Ducks play.
Smart man.
As they had the aforementioned new ways to lose a game.
Right.
They gave up a goal while they themselves were on power play that cost them the game with
shorthanded
5 minutes to go. I don't see how that happens, but they started out 9-6, and they've only won one game since then. They're now at 10-18, so that's just really, really inspiring. But it's stuff like last night that puts you in that position when you don't finish the job like you set yourself up to do. But that was where my TV time went last night.
Smart. At least you're watching some action. It wasn't a bunch of guys sitting around at a desk talking about football games that are happening in 8, 9, 10 months from now. But what you make of the 2024 schedules? I mean, they got it put out. We did instant analysis on BamaCentral.com, and our friend Austin Hannon wrote the schedule up for us last night. You can check it out right there, BamaCentral.com. But you see the schedule. Oklahoma and Texas are coming into the league. Obviously, this is looking through an Alabama lens, so we'll just look really at the Alabama schedule. Western Kentucky, USF, at Wisconsin, bye. Georgia, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, bye. LSU, Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn. First two things you notice right off rip are the double bye, and you notice the mid games or the mid season stretch of, I guess there's no divisions anymore, but SEC Eastern teams all bam 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 in a row. You got your 5 SEC Eastern Division matchups in a row across 5 weeks. So Will Miller, what do you make about the 2024 Alabama football schedule?
Well, for the point you just made about facing so many SEC East teams, it's weird to not see Mississippi State, to not see Ole Miss, and I don't know if this current schedule really benefits from that absence. I mean, no disrespect to Vanderbilt, but would you rather play Vanderbilt than Ole Miss at this point in time if you're Alabama? I don't think that you got a more exciting matchup, but the schedule itself, the double bye does stand out. And obviously we had talked about this in our own various chats about how this was going to happen, predicting when the byes were going to be, but it's still, I think, going to take some getting used to. Normally you have the bye week once before LSU every year, and now there's going to be 2 of them. The second one coming a little while before that, actually, but I think like some of these changes, it'll just kind of be something that after a while you get used to. Certainly adds a new element to, teams being prepared coming out of a bye, or what a team can do during a bye week to improve. Now, 2 opportunities for those type of things instead of 1, so we'll see from each team's perspective how that helps, or maybe things stay the same. Who knows? I think that's just one of the wrinkles to the schedule. The Oklahoma matchup is going to excite a lot of people, but this Wisconsin game is also on my radar. That's going to be a new type of environment for Alabama to play in. And I know it's not in the, harsh weather time of the year, but still it's not often Alabama goes on the road to play a Power 5 team. I believe, twice since Nick Saban took over as a coach, against Duke and against Texas the first time before this year. I believe those are the only 2 times, if I'm not mistaken. So uncharted territory, interesting matchup. And I think that's what stands out to me in the early season, like the pre-Georgia slate. Of course, you have that. That's going to be a main event all over the country type of matchup there in late September. But lots to like about the schedule, I think.
All right, let me throw a couple things at you based off what you said and everything we're looking at the 2024 schedule. All right, do you think that our boss, you think that we can convince Chris Walsh to whoever is going up to Wisconsin, whoever's going to Madison, Wisconsin in week number 3, to sneak into the student section at the end of the third quarter to participate in jump around for the video's sake? You just put it up for the video. You get the because we can't jump around in the press box. Obviously, that's got to be a little bit of a safe space right there. But come on, we gotta convince our boss to let us somebody get down into the student section and jump around. I'm so excited about being up there. And Will, I'm volunteering you to be up. I think you'll be the most adept person to jump around with your height. I think that'd be great for BamaCentral.com. All right, the second thing I'm throwing at you based off of the 2024 schedule is Oklahoma at Oklahoma, followed up with Auburn. Auburn's going to might get a new quarterback in Peyton Thorne. They're definitely getting new receivers, so they're going to be more adept in the passing game. The offense is going to be better next year. Oklahoma, obviously, losing their quarterback makes it a little interesting in the transfer portal, going to Oregon. But you're going to, those 2 weeks are going to be freaking brutal. Those 2 weeks are going to be like you no longer get. I mean, yes, Mercer's on your schedule. All right, you get the Bears, and you will once again in 11 months hear my rant about cupcakes on the schedule. But you're going to have your Mercer game before your double at Oklahoma and then Auburn at home. And you're lucky, you're fortunate to have Auburn at home. But goodness gracious, it is not easy. The schedule does not look easy by any means. And the third thing, before I throw it back to you, is do you agree that there are 5 premier programs in the SEC, and those 5 programs are Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, and LSU now? So with that being the premises, those 5 schools, you looked at my instant analysis last night on BamaCentral.com, and you see, all right, you've got a breakdown. Several schools are just playing 2 of the 5, and several schools are playing 3. Everybody's playing at least 2. Nobody's playing more than 3 of those 5 premier programs: Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Texas, and Oklahoma. Of that, and with that premise, Alabama's in the category of playing the 3. Alabama's got Georgia, Alabama's got Oklahoma, and Alabama's got LSU on its schedule. And so Alabama getting a little bit of the harder half of the SEC schedule. Not near as brutal maybe as Florida, but Florida did it to themselves with Miami on the front end and Florida State on the back end. What do you make of those 3 different kind of concepts that I'm throwing at you? Getting you to jump around, playing Oklahoma right before Auburn, and then Alabama ending up in the harder half of the league scheduling.
Well, for one thing, I would love to participate and jump around as much as the next guy. It's one of I think the underrated traditions out there in college football.
Who's to say? We've only seen it on TV.
Make of that what you will. Always enjoyed it myself, and I've kept up with Wisconsin ever since 2014 when my sixth grade English teacher liked Wisconsin, and they just have happened to be largely good since then. So I've seen a lot of their games. That season opener against LSU that year was great, just for the record. Wisconsin bottled it. For those who don't know, they should have won. But to your second point, I think this Oklahoma game is going to be really challenging because that environment, I think, is a really good one. Watched a lot of Oklahoma games in my time as well. When Oklahoma gets up for a home game, it's one of the best environments in the Big 12. Hard to compare to Texas with, 105,000 fans and, just scorching heat, which Alabama was able to overcome by the skin of its teeth in the 2022 season.
But they're going to want to welcome Alabama to Norman the first time in the league. They're going to be coming fourth quarter loud and proud.
And Alabama's familiar with Brent Venables, former Clemson defensive coordinator, who's given them some trouble with his schemes and play calls and various designs in the past. We all remember 2019 national championship game and when Alabama not only lost but got blown out. And how many times has that happened? And Brent Venables' defense played a big part in that. So lots of factors coming into play there that I think are going to come together during this game to make it a really intimidating place to play. And a matchup that you certainly have to circle on your calendar. Oklahoma is losing Dylan Gabriel to Oregon. I think he will be one of the premier players in the sport next season. But in Oklahoma's case, that's not really going to matter if he's out there doing it on the Pacific Coast. But I still think it's going to be a tough game, and it's an absolute gauntlet when you talk about that and then your rivalry back-to-back, like you said. But that brings me, I guess, into your third point with the difficult scheduling. You're fortunate to have, two of the three games that come to mind for me, the Iron Bowl rivalry and Georgia, are both at home. You're fortunate to have those at home. Do have to go to Baton Rouge, and Alabama, no matter how good they are, it's always been a struggle in Baton Rouge. You remember 2016 when it was only a 10-0 game, 2022 when Jaden Daniels and LSU beat Bryce Young in Brian Kelly's first season, 2012 when A.J. McCarron was still in the midst of his Heisman campaign at that time and had to engineer a magical drive to Kevin Norwood and T.J. Yeldon in order to take one from Zach Mettenberger, who now is on the Alabama staff, as it were. There's been some – and then 2 years later, an overtime game with Blake Sims and DeAndre White. I mean, there's been some barn burners in Baton Rouge, but all that's to say it's been tough sledding for Alabama in that venue. But still, a couple of the tougher games, you're going to have those at home, and that's going to be big, I think. Auburn hasn't won in Tuscaloosa since they came back. Georgia lost in Tuscaloosa fairly decisively after the second half in 2020. So you're fortunate to have those games at home.
All right, so on that last track, the harder schedules, easier schedules. Okay, so Alabama plays three of the premier top five. Now it's funny, they're one of it. So basically, the only one that they avoid is Texas because they're playing LSU, they're playing Oklahoma, they're playing Georgia, and they are one of the premier top five. All right, so they're playing three. Oklahoma has three. Then the rest of the top five. I mean, because this is going to be important when you think about there's no more divisions, and you're going to think about you're taking the top two teams in the league and putting them in the championship game next year. The schedule balancing. All right, so Georgia, Oklahoma, Georgia, Texas, and LSU all just play two of those premier top five opponents. Oklahoma and Alabama are in the half that play three. So it's Oklahoma, it's Alabama, it's Florida, it's Ole Miss, it's Auburn, it's Auburn, it's South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt that all end up with three of those top 5 premier programs. And so I think that's going to be a little bit of a factor. I think that's going to be I think that's going to be a little bit of a factor to of who's going to be playing in Atlanta, because if you look at that and you just judge based off strength of schedule, you might see an Oklahoma, you might see a Georgia, Texas, a Georgia, LSU. I mean, just saying that Alabama's road to Atlanta is a little bit harder.
Well, the SEC's always had two of the better teams playing for the league crown. In the Big Ten, you've frequently seen, 4-loss, sometimes even 5-loss teams playing somebody for a conference title. And you've seen that happen on a number of occasions over recent years. You saw Northwestern a few years ago. Wisconsin lost 5 with Monty Ball in 2012, I want to say it was, played for a conference title, and went to the Rose Bowl as a 5-loss team. Purdue played Michigan for the Big Ten last year, and I can't remember whether did they lose 3 or 4, but, more than 2. And the SEC just has not been that way. You had 1-loss Alabama and unbeaten Georgia a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta. Last year, you had a 2-loss LSU team that may have gotten into the playoff if they beat Georgia. The year before that, you had 2 unbeatens, Alabama and Georgia, 2 of the best teams in football that year. So you were already getting the best pretty regularly. In that sense, I think eliminating divisions may not be as much of a factor as people think, just because of where these programs are, where Georgia is, where Alabama still is, where LSU, I think, is going to get with Brian Kelly, because he's a good coach, love him or hate him, and all these other programs. But without divisions, yeah, the strength of schedule matters, because you could have a really good team, but like that 2012 Wisconsin team lost every game by 1 possession. They were ranked in the top 10, I believe, to begin the year. Lost every game by 1 possession. You can't do that when you don't have divisions. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to play for anything. So, I mean, it does matter, but not as much as it might in another league.
All right, Will, I got to throw you a curveball. We have more people watching live than I have usually, so I really appreciate everybody watching Will Miller right here on the Joe Gaither Show, tuning in on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. They're all watching you, Will, and one of them has a question for you. Miss Katie Wyndham needs Will's thoughts on Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers, 10 years, $700 million, correct? But it's like a real deferred contract, so the first year's like $20 million or so, something real nice and friendly. And then it's heavy on the back end. So you're the baseball expert. Let's hear it. Let's throw you a curveball. Shohei Ohtani moves from one part of LA to another part of LA, and now he's with the Dodgers.
Joe, you're very close to getting my Anaheim is not LA rant. Artie Moreno has gaslit the public by putting the Los Angeles name with the Angels, but that's a separate conversation. I'm not surprised.
Rile you up, though. I got to get you riled up.
I'm really not surprised. I've always thought the Dodgers were the favorites just because they had the money, and if it came down to who was going to offer the most money, it was always going to be the Dodgers. And $700 million is the most money anybody's ever gotten in North American sports. And I think in that sense, I mean, Shohei, in my opinion, from what I've seen the guy play. I've seen him both in person and on TV. Numbers wise, maybe not, but I think he's the most talented player that's ever played the game. So to see him get the biggest contract is not the biggest surprise I've had. It wasn't a surprise at all in that respect. I do think it's bad for the sport for him to go to the Dodgers, a team that already has so many good players, and they're just stacking guys. Mookie Betts is a top 5 player in baseball. They have him. Freddie Freeman's one of the best hitters of the generation, a future Hall of Famer, and they signed him when the Atlanta general manager apparently decided he was too big for his britches and didn't sign him back. Other great players. I mean, that's a heck of a lineup. If you're an opposing pitcher, you just don't want to go play in Dodger Stadium at this point with Shohei. He's not going to pitch, and that's an interesting point to bring up. He's not going to pitch this year. He's recovering from his second Tommy John surgery, and he's 30. So that is something that
he's not going to pitch again, or he's just not going to pitch next year. Obviously,
not next year. He will pitch again, but you just have to ask how long, because do you want, if you're the team that signed him, do you want to protect your investment? Do you not want him to pitch? The guy's going to hit 40 homers a year if he plays 162 games, if not more. He hit 44 last year and missed the last month. So begs to be asked, will he ever pitch again? If not, he's not worth the $700 million because that's just an exorbitant amount of money. And for a guy that will be a primary DH because you're not going to play him in the field because you don't want him to get injured. Now, the contract itself, people have been speculating it's luxury tax evasion. Major League Baseball does not have a salary cap, obviously. And
hold on 1 second before you continue, because I'm going to put my idiot hat on real quick. You just said he's going to play primary DH. When did the National League adopt the DH?
2022.
All right, so I'm not that far behind. All right.
And it was basically the move that made it make sense for the Braves to keep Marcell Ozuna.
All right, continue with Ohtani. Thank you for
albatross of a contract. Anyway, so Shohei has structured his contract, as a lot of people know, in a way that is as team-friendly as it's going to get. Not this year, but the following years after that, he's going to make only $2 million a year. Now, the question you may be asking is, how in the world is he going to make that when he's got a $700 million contract? Well, obviously contract deferrals are a big part of these larger deals because teams only have a certain amount of money lying around. And even when you have a payroll conversation, you have to remember this is a year-to-year conversation, what teams are paying each year in payroll. So this year he's going to make $46 million because of a luxury tax for luxury tax purposes. But he's basically deferred the significant lion's share of his contract until the 10 years after the contract lapses. So until 2043, he's going to be getting paid. Now, that's incredibly cost prohibitive to the Dodgers in those years. So expect the 2030-something Dodgers, they might suck because they've got to pay Shohei Ohtani $68 million a year. $68 million. What would you do with $68 million a year, Joe?
I can think of a few things, but I wouldn't even put a dent into spending it. I can think of a few things right off the top of my head, but that'd probably set me back. Let's just say conservatively, like $75K, and I'd be set.
First thing I would do with $68 million is buy a really nice car, but that's just
me. Yeah. That's that's kind of a side. Do a couple of home repairs, take care of the student loan debts, buy a nice car, buy Abby all the toys in the world. Get Bruce, some high end cat food, and that's probably maybe a television for the bedroom, and I'd probably be set.
But all things considered, the move wasn't surprising. It's not surprising that's where he went. I think that's where he always wanted to go. Blue Jays fans are very upset right now because there were a lot of reports that
he was always going to stay on the West Coast, though.
Traveling to Toronto, and he really wasn't. And there's a lot of theories floating around that perhaps we'll get to in a future segment. But that's all a lot to explain. And really, ultimately, comes down to.
Let's get back on track with Auburn a little bit. You mentioned the last time they beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl was the comeback. Did you see Cam Newton? Did you see Cam Newton yesterday, this morning, sometime in the last 24 hours on social media going around? A small little clip of him saying that, Auburn, admitting Auburn really is kind of Alabama's little brother. You love seeing Cam Newton actually say the quiet part out loud.
Well, I think part of that is Cam knows, and he would never say this, but Cam knows as well as anybody that the only reason that Auburn won that game is him. And the only reason they won that national championship is him. They sure as heck weren't doing it with Gene Chizik. And I don't mean any disrespect. I don't think as badly of Gene Chizik as a coach as some Auburn fans do. But that was all him. And it was a magical run for him. He was wasn't it? Not just in college.
People talk about Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow absolutely is in the conversation. But to me, Cam Newton is the greatest single season of college football I've ever seen in my life.
To me, it's the Johnny Manziel year, but that may just be because I saw him in person, and that's so. But I saw Burrow too, but Johnny Manziel, just the way he captivated the sport. But anyway, I think in Cam Newton's case, and it's now been long enough since he was in college that maybe he feels he can say some of these things. I feel like timing can be a factor in these types of situations. Like, obviously, he's not going to say that, a year or two after he himself orchestrated the Iron Bowl comeback. But now, it's been longer than I'd care to admit, 13 years. And he can probably say that stuff some more, or he feels like he can say that stuff some more. There's going to be an outcry from the fan base. They love him. They don't expect to hear that stuff coming from him. But
what are we, 6 months, a year away from him admitting that they got $180,000 to go to Auburn? Because that's going to come out at some point where he's going to basically just say on a podcast or at some point, "Oh yeah, Dad got X amount of $1,000 for his church." That's going to come out at some point.
Well, I think you're at a point now where it's just not as objectionable with NIL and with all these new transfer rules. And you saw the legislation just yesterday that there's been a brief pause on, now people can transfer again to different schools again without having any additional.
I'm as pro transfer portal and as pro NIL as pretty much anybody you'll ever meet. But giving them the second free transfer to me is wrong. You get the one free transfer, and then you get the second transfer if you graduate. So boom, there's your two transfers. To me, you go, "Oh, I'm a freshman. I made the wrong decision. I don't like the coach. I don't like, the system doesn't fit me. The coach just got, whatever the case may be. I can get more NIL money, whatever the case may be." You jump in the portal. Boom, you're a sophomore. You stick it out. You can't just go right back into the portal as a sophomore and then right back in the portal as a junior. Like, to me, I am pro portal and I'm pro athlete freedom, but
and you're not pro free agency is what I'm hearing.
Right. And I totally get, hey, Mom and Dad, I made the wrong decision. This school where I'm at wasn't what I thought it was. This coach wasn't who I thought he was. Maybe I stink in this system or whatever the case may be. You move, you transfer, that's great. And then you say, okay, all right, do I need to transfer again? Well, shoot, I better bust my butt and graduate in 2 years. I better bust my butt and graduate as a junior, as a third year, so I can transfer again and have 2 years of eligibility and make a smart decision on that third round. But, well, goodness gracious. I'm perturbed a little bit. And I know the NCAA just did it because of lawsuits and mitigation, trying to mitigate the stacking up of, well, you let me transfer and now I can't transfer and you're against, antitrust lawsuits. But it's just, and to hear it come out of my mouth, Will, it makes me feel like an old man. It makes me feel like a boomer, but it's just come on, we got to draw the line at some place. And I am pro freedom. I do think that, at 18 years old, I made a great decision, thank the Lord, to come to the University of Alabama. But I could have gone, I was 7 or 8 schools that I was choosing from. And I could have chosen a wrong school. And now, granted, was it the perfect fit here at UA? No, it took me 12, 14 months to work myself into it being, to grow up a little bit. But I could have easily transferred. It's just, it drives me nuts. I'm pro freedom, but we can't have this every year Johnny's in the portal. Every year Johnny's looking for a new school. I mean, Dylan Rail was a perfect going to be this. Because he, I don't know what your thoughts are on him, but the quarterback who we talked about him a couple days ago on the program, I think with Michael Bonner about him. He's committed to Georgia. Now he's backing out on Georgia. He's going to Nebraska maybe for a big NIL deal. Well, Rayola's been to 4 different high schools over 4 years, and we saw the same things here at Alabama with Antonio Alfano. 4 high schools in 4 years, comes to Alabama and just isn't a fit, doesn't work right. All this transferring, I am pro freedom, but you got to find some roots. You got to settle in somewhere so you can develop for, I get it. Mom and dad moves across the country or is in military or has job circumstances or things happen. All right. But 4 high schools in 4 years and then subsequently to turn around and be so active in the transfer portal like a lot of these kids are, it's a shame. It's a problem. And I'm going to get off my soapbox. I'm sorry.
Well, it's rules like that have changed the game. And in turn, it's kind of encouraging the high school situations like you pointed out. I mean, for me, I obviously I don't have kids. I'm 21, but if my kid were a really good athlete in high school, well, at some point you have to balance that between what's best for his or her personal enrichment versus what college they might go to. I mean, there's a real component of personal growth, personal development that might be being stunted if you're, picking up stakes every basically 10 months and new environments and all this stuff. But now you have my soapbox on that subject. But it's rules like that have changed the game. And for former players, it maybe, benefited financially or some other ways that when it wasn't according to the rules, they might be able to come out and say it and not get flamed. And that's another indirect consequence of these new rules.
All right, let's talk about Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams has been the subject of this show all, let's see, yeah. Do we do a Monday? Yeah, Monday, not so much Tuesday, but definitely Wednesday. We talked about Ryan Williams. We're going to talk about him again. Everybody knows him by now who's listened to the show. 5-star receiver out of Saraland High School, torched the Chalkville, what was it? Chickasaws? Choctaws. They're the Choctaws, aren't they? In the state championship game, but lost. Ryan Williams is now reclassified into the 2024 class and still committed to the University of Alabama. But Ryan Williams is doing the little dance. He's doing the dance with Auburn. He's doing the dance with Alabama. He's doing the dance with the fans. And some of this is 17-year-old kid, Will Miller. Let's parse what is 17-year-old kid and what is real. Does Alabama have anything to worry about with Ryan Williams? He says that he's 100% locked in. But for those who do not live on social media or do not live in the media, we'll let them know. Here's the quick synopsis. Last night on Instagram Live, if you're familiar with Instagram, it's just an app. He goes on live. It shows his face. Friends join him. It looks like a group chat, group call. You can invite random strangers in or friends. He gets on a group call, and several Auburn fans. I couldn't tell if some of the players there were. I couldn't tell if some of the other guys were players, Auburn players, but there were definitely Auburn fans that were.
I thought they were recruits of Auburn.
Okay, they might have been. Okay, I wasn't exactly clear, and I didn't want to put out wrong information. But it was definitely Auburn fans and maybe Auburn recruits, current recruits in the 2024 class. They spent an hour pitching Ryan Williams on Instagram Live. Yeah, come to Auburn, yada, yada, yada. What does Alabama have for you? We don't win as much at Auburn, so it means more when we win. You'll have a lot more fun here at Auburn. We need you a lot more than they need you. They call it Terry and Arnold and Jalen Milroe spoon-fed because of all the nice amenities that Alabama has. They were getting after it on the social media machine, trying to get and bend in Ryan Williams' ear. And to add further context before I throw it to you, Will Miller, is on Sunday. The Auburn Tigers are playing Southern California in basketball in Neville Arena. I think it's on Sunday. It is over the weekend. And they're playing Southern Cal. You know who's on Southern Cal? Bronny James. Tickets are through the roof expensive, obviously, for their small arena. But Ryan Williams is allegedly going to Auburn to and take in this environment, to see Bronny James, to see this game. And this has all got Alabama fans worried. So with that in mind, let's parse, Will Miller. What is 17-year-old? I'm enjoying the attention. I'm enjoying the recruitment. And what is Alabama should be worried about all this activity?
Well, I think most of it is the first thing. 17-year-old, former 17-year-old boy, they do enjoy going on social media and just and if you're able to talk about stuff like this, doing that, they like throwing it around a little bit. And in terms of willy won't he with the recruiting conversation, I mean when it comes to recruiting, you can't convince me some of these kids don't enjoy it. And why shouldn't they? They're great talents. It's nice to be wanted. So great for them. But I think that's what that was. I think he is locked into Alabama. I think a lot of people want to go to that basketball game. I'm one of them, but tickets are probably $400, honestly, without looking and just guessing, knowing what Neville Arena ticket prices can be. Would be my guess. But And for the Auburn side, getting the opportunity, I guess, to make the pitch, maybe feel like you could be doing something. I don't know. I thought the whole thing was, rather, to use a term the youths are floating around a lot, unserious. I thought it was rather unserious Instagram Live and conversation. Probably wouldn't be happy if I was Ryan's stakeholders watching that. But again, sometimes 17-year-old boys are just going to do that type of stuff, just in terms of shooting the crap with other people on social media, just part of the game. And I wouldn't be overly worried. I know that Hugh Freeze is hot on the recruiting trail and has done pretty well for himself and will, I think, only get better as the next couple of years roll on. So there is that to think about. But, absent that, like, say Brian Harsin were still the coach at this exact second, I don't know how much of a talking point this would be.
All right, we'll keep going with Alabama football right here on the Joe Gaither Show with Will Miller. You're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter at Joe Gaither 6, at BamaCentral, at BamaCentral SI on Instagram, at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated on Facebook. Follow Will Miller at Real WB Miller, and I am at Joe Gaither 6. All right, a little bit of news today, Will. Not really news, but a little bit of news, I guess. And now it's official. Jalen Milroe on the Next Round Live, basically 4 or 5 hours ago, declared or announced or confirmed, whatever an adjective you want to use, whatever verb you want to use, said that he's coming back for his redshirt junior year. This was kind of not really a surprise to me. I guess it's great to have it confirmed, and we can take it to the bank. We'll have Jalen Milroe back as a redshirt junior in 2024. We talked about the 2024 schedule, so it's nice to go into the 24 schedule with experience under center. What do you think, Jalen Milroe coming back for 2024? Right?
Well, it's absolutely the correct decision, I feel like, in my opinion. I think that he's going to be the Heisman frontrunner next year. He is for me. And if he's able to perform really well next year, he'll vault up draft boards and probably go after that, even though I would presume he has eligibility left. This was a good decision for him. He's grown so much this year. He's done a great job. He's a totally different player, now versus September. And
but he still has a lot of room to grow.
That narrative has been done to death, but it's true. And it's an important point for this Alabama season, not just for Jalen Milroe as an individual. And for him to come back, maybe only get better, and maybe make it to New York, maybe win the Heisman Trophy for Alabama. Great opportunities for him for coming back. And we don't know how this season is going to end yet, but he did lead the team to an unlikely playoff berth, win over number 1 Georgia in their own backyard. He's already done some nice things. He can, he can follow that up in a really emphatic way. And again, I mean, it's just an opportunity for him not only to be regarded as that type of guy that can win a Heisman, but also to vault up draft boards and be a really coveted piece for teams at the next level. So all around, I think it's a good decision for him. Probably did weigh it. You've seen quarterbacks go early. I say it time and time again. You look at a guy like DeShone Kizer, who played at Notre Dame years ago. He went too early. Part of that was he got drafted by Cleveland. That didn't help him either. But you've seen guys go too early and not have the development and not take the opportunity in front of them. Because I think if DeShone Kizer had stayed in college another year, Notre Dame is a playoff team in 2017. And they were a really good team that year. But I think it's the right move, but I don't know how seriously he would have considered the other possibility. I don't like you said, Joe, this is largely expected. If you're a member of the fan base, you probably weren't worried. But again, good decision. I think it's going to have positive ramifications going forward.
All right, we're hanging out with Will Miller right here off BamaCentral.com, on BamaCentral.com. Will, you got anything you want to throw at me before I throw? I got maybe 1, maybe 2 more to throw at you before we get on out of here.
UFC 296, who's winning the main event? Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington for the welterweight title. Much anticipated fight. Leon's second title defense and Colby's third real title shot. He's a former interim champion, but A, RDA won that fight, and B, interim belts are not real belts. So with those extra points out of the way, what do you think?
Okay, I'll be pulling for Leon Edwards because Colby Covington is a lot of words that I shouldn't say on this show. As a person, I just don't really find him a very appealing as a person. But I do think that Colby Covington will win. I think that Colby Covington will get on the inside and be a brawler, and like he's just got that tough nastiness to him. And maybe it's because Leon's a little more, just a little quieter, that I don't really think he's got that dog in him. Maybe he does. Maybe, the bite, maybe it's Colby Covington's bark that makes me think that he's going to win. But I will be pulling for Leon Edwards just because of everything that Colby Covington seems to be as a person.
Well, Colby's had great success in title fights.
He's a beast. I mean, he is a heck of a fighter, and not somebody I want to find out in a dark alley.
Well, some of the best wrestling chops in the sport. He's a guy that he's a rare breed. He competes at close to the weight he actually is. He's not a weight bully. You're not going to see him do that stuff. Former wrestler at Oregon State. He's honed that craft. He's used it well. He's done great against other wrestlers like Kamaru Usman, who he was beating before Usman finished him in the last minute of their first fight. And I think their second fight should have been scored a draw. Colby gave a great account of himself in that fight after not being active at all, which he really still isn't. Is he? I don't think he's fought once since that fight when he beat Jorge Masvidal. And that was in March 2022. So not particularly active. In that sense, you really don't have a lot to judge him on other than, what he did in those other fights years ago. I think Leon's going to win. Leon's looked really good since he won the belts. He beat Kamaru Usman in comeback fashion in one of the most shocking results in a title fight. But then he went out there and beat Kamaru Usman in their their third fight, second title fight. Looked really good doing it. That was in March of this year. I thought Leon showed a lot of things that maybe he's been in the game a little while and maybe had gone by the wayside, but he looked as sharp as ever. He was confident. He was poised. And I think he's going to bring those. I think he wants to beat Colby. I think everybody wants to shut Colby Covington up. You have to add that element in. This is not going to have the same energy as if he was fighting Gilbert Burns. Who is a very humble human being, not going to talk a lot of smack. The air is going to be different when you're fighting Colby Covington, and I think that's going to contribute to the guy on the other side of the cage wanting to starch him. And I think Leon knows he can. Leon's going to be the bigger guy. Everybody's going to be the bigger guy against Colby Covington because Colby is a natural welterweight, as opposed to a guy that cuts a lot of weight to get down there. I think Leon will win. I don't think he'll finish him. Colby's a very durable guy, even at this point in his career. I think Leon's going to win by decision. I see it being fairly lopsided. I don't know how close this is going to be. Now, if Colby can get inside, work the wrestling, maybe we're having a different conversation. But Leon has drilled that for Kamaru Usman for 2 fights in a row. Kamaru's a really good wrestler in his own right. Great showing against Khamzat Chimaev in October. And Leon was up to the challenge. So we'll see what happens. Very interesting fight. I think it'll be a great main event. Certainly a lot of fanfare leading up to it. The press conference with Colby Covington with a microphone in his hand is going to be something else. Love Colby or hate him. It's appointment viewing. But I think Leon's going to win, preserve his title reign. Who knows what he'll do? He says he wants to go to 185. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think they'll book it. But on the other hand, nobody's clamoring for Bilal Muhammad to get a title shot. If you've seen Twitter, and he's the logical next guy in line.
Boring.
And so who knows? If they don't want to rebook that, you don't know what could happen next. But you do have to get past this weekend if you're Leon before you have those conversations.
All right, let's get out of here with this. Do you know who Ashley Moody is, Will Miller?
Say again?
Do you know who Ashley Moody is?
I do not.
Ashley Moody is the Florida Attorney General. You may have seen her in the headlines over the last day or so, or at least her picture in the headlines. She is launching an antitrust investigation into the decision to leave Florida State out of the 14 playoff field. Moody sent a civil investigative demand letter to the College Football Playoff Committee on Tuesday. Her office is seeking a long list of documents and information, including all communications with the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Southeastern Conference, and the sports media outlet ESPN. Miss Moody is getting after the College Football Playoff for basically leaving out the Seminoles, costing Florida State a lot of money, the ACC a lot of money, obviously in playoff shares, but basically saying backroom deals with the SEC, backroom deals with ESPN, and broadcasting rights and advertising dollars left the Noles out. Obviously, this won't get wrapped up near in time for anything to matter on the field, but what's this all about? Is she just trying to garner votes? Is she just trying to gain support from her constituency? Or is there really some sort of, punitive action that's going to happen here for the Seminoles?
I don't think any punitive action will happen. I would love to launch a full-scale investigation every time something subjective happened that I disagreed with. When I missed every single true-false question on the MassCom test last month, I would have loved to launch a full-scale investigation into that and get my points back. I can't do that. And you can't just haul off, say whatever, do whatever. In this case, it's kind of embarrassing. It's just kind of embarrassing when you're saying, yeah, I'm going to sue, because it's all a conspiracy and I'm going to sue. I mean, if you think Florida State got a raw deal, that's fine. There is a legitimate and fair argument to suggest that Florida State got a raw deal here. But you're not going to accomplish anything by pouring tax dollars into frivolous litigation is what it amounts to. You're just putting on a show, I feel like, to some degree for the constituents, for social media. Really, this is just taken off and taken by storm on social media. But what do they expect to happen? I mean, do they expect Boo Corrigan or Bill Hancock or somebody to go up, snap their fingers, and be like, "Well, guys, we made a boo-boo. We're going to fix it. Florida State, you're in." Say that did happen, and we live in a weird reality. Say that did happen. Well, then Alabama gets a raw deal, or whoever they take out gets a raw deal, and you have the same conversation from just a different angle. I think that people are grasping at straws to find a reason. The reason's right in front of us. It's because Jordan Travis got hurt. But I think they're grasping at straws to find some deeper reasoning because, again, they think Florida State got screwed. A valid opinion to have. But they want it to be a nefarious reason so that these tangents, rants, whatever you want to call them, can then become justified, and that's just not going to be the case.
Will Miller, ladies and gentlemen, follow him at RealWB Miller on the X/Twitter machine. Tell everybody what you're working on behind the looking glass, beyond the looking glass. Is that right? Beyond the glass, behind the
glass.
All right. Tell everybody what you're working on behind the glass, and really anything else that you want to get off your chest as we round up out of here.
As some people know, Aiden Hardy and myself started a new sports platform, Behind the Glass Sports, and we've got some exciting things in the works. I recently did a really big baseball story with Eric Gagne, who played for the Dodgers back in the day before they were giving out $700 million contracts. But it was a really great interview that I got to do, and I turned it into a story about relief pitching in the Cy Young. It is my pinned tweet, so if you want to read it, you can go on my Twitter, which Joe just said at RealWB Miller, and you can give it a read. I'd really appreciate it. We do our show at 5:30 Central until 6:30 on Tuesday nights, and that's something that you can watch on Twitter. You can watch it live. You can keep up with. We talk a lot of football. We talk a lot of basketball, pretty much everything in between. We'll have a lot to say this upcoming week about the Creighton basketball game that a lot of people have eyes on. Slept-on rivalry, perhaps, for the Crimson Tide, and a prove-it game, and Creighton just lost last night in upset fashion. We'll have a lot to say, and that's at BTG_sports on Twitter, so that's how you can keep up with that if you're so inclined. That's the bulk of what I'll be working on for the next couple of weeks as Christmas break is right there on the horizon. And then towards the end of the month, get back into swing of things more regularly here. I have some basketball stuff at the end of the month with the CM Newton Classic. As you know, Joe, you'll be there as well. And then leading into playoff stuff, Rose Bowl coverage, whatever it may be, just keep on the lookout. Stay on our site. We'll have all sorts of things, playoff, basketball, whatever it may be. It is the home of all things Alabama, right?
Absolutely. We're BamaCentral.com, and this has been Will Miller of BamaCentral.com. Check him out everywhere on all the platforms at Real WB Miller at BamaCentral.com. You can follow us at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated on Facebook, at BamaCentral SI on Instagram. I am Joe Gaither. This has been another edition of the Joe Gaither Show. I appreciate everybody who's watched us live. A lot of people watched us live today, probably because of Will Miller, and I appreciate that. Everybody who's tuned in to us on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. You can find me again on all the social media platforms at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, review the show. Will, I've seen like 4 or 5 subscribers on the Spotify in the last week, so I really appreciate everybody who's gone to Spotify and hit subscribe. I notice each and every one of you, and the serotonin that I get is like, woohoo! Oh, I do want to say thank you to Miss Julene for watching and commenting. I want to say thank you to Kate Bagwell, Mike Pershier, Katie Wyndham, Tyler White, Steve Shannon, everybody jumping in on the comments and joining us today. It's been a lot of fun. I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll have a fun Friday. We'll figure out what we want to do. We'll probably talk about that Creighton game a good bit as we get you ready for the weekend ahead. Oh, and bowl practice getting started this weekend. Early enrollment. Oh my gosh, all the children are going to be on campus. Julian Sayin going to be spinning that bean at practice live in an Alabama Crimson Tide uniform. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.